Welcome to the Twilight Lounge, which today I am thankful is, well, it's not below street level, but it's as low as you can get because it's about 15 degrees cooler in here than it is outside, which is awesome. This is Good for the Jews. We are the Jews. He is Eric Goldbrenner, and on this night he reclines.
Hebrew.
I am Larry Rosen, and I am melting.
You look all right.
Oh, it's terrible. But the thing is,
ran in here. Larry's like got running shoes on and shorts. He told me he just got off.
This
like
is
a
how.
10-mile hike.
This is me. All right, I'm going to complain a little bit about the weather. I know you're not supposed to because it's hot, and hot is supposed to equal good. But frankly, if I wanted to live in Texas, I'd live in Texas. There's two reasons why. First of all, I'm wearing little socks.
You got those little. Well, they're not the little. They're above the.
No,
ankle.
but I never wear little socks, and here I am.
I sometimes wear those ones below the ankle. Sometimes.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah, it's little. I hate little socks. Here I am wearing little socks because it's so freaking hot.
You got nice legs.
Thank you. I won best legs in 9th grade.
Really?
Oh yeah. That made me at that junior high school. Let me tell you. I was a
that.
nerd, and then no more nerd.
Really?
Either that or it was a joke, and they were
I'll
making
send
fun of me.
Foxy.
They might have been making fun of me.
I'm chicken leg.
Well, you're a slim guy.
This is beyond slim.
Yeah, you're a wisp of a guy. You're a feather. If you fought, you'd probably fight what, 110? No, seriously. If you were training, that was my water, and do not begrudge me my water today. For it will be 90 degrees in and outside of my house, because. Okay, here's another. I'm just going to complain for the first 10 minutes about the weather.
How unusual.
Because everyone gets angry at me when I complain about the weather. All winter I've been complaining. I think it's freaking apocalyptic weather. It's a sign of bad things. I keep looking out my window waiting for the swarm of locusts to come.
It's global warming. It's real simple.
You know,
You can get metaphysical if you want, but scientists have really figured this out, you know.
Well, you know, it's funny. The global warming thing is something I did not want to believe because I didn't want to be with the crowd of people that believed it.
Yeah, I understand.
But I don't know how you can argue with a winter where... I mean, okay, you've lived here your whole life. This is not how warm it is here.
Oh, no, this is warm.
And it's not 75 degrees in December.
We've always had the occasional 90-degree spell that lasts 2 or 3 days.
Right. But then on the third day, you look out west and here comes a fog.
It's coming, you know.
It hasn't come. It was this hot 2 weeks ago. It's this hot now. It was 70 on Christmas.
My garden is loving it.
Your garden might be loving it.
It was raining in May, though.
Yeah, and when it did rain, it poured.
Okay, so we're not going to talk about global warming except say one thing.
What?
That what people... I don't think anyone can dispute that global temperatures are increasing because we've been measuring it for hundreds of years. What they dispute is what is the cause.
Right.
And then it becomes a political issue. Is it industrialization, and do we have to change our industrial practices?
You think it's possible that that's just a cycle of things and we're just, there was an ice age before, there'll be an ice age again, things change?
I think it's totally possible. I don't think we have the historical perspective to judge, you know, the Earth is 4 billion years old.
Right.
You know, we've been looking at global weather patterns.
Well, no, it's actually only 1,000 years old, isn't it?
Come on.
All right, I'm just kidding. I don't believe that.
Even 1,000 years. You know, I mean, it's like, look, at the time of, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, when they were looking at how high the Nile goes and how
I'm going to stop looking at
much
the
it
computer.
recedes.
Just look at you.
Yeah, look at me. Forget that.
All right.
Pretend the gear's not even here. It's just me and you.
It just gets more professional. We have like, Eric's rigged up what looks sort of like a boom mic, which is...
It's a boom.
Which is boom! It's a new thing for me.
When you stand up and hit it with your head, you will...
I will say boom!
So here's my point. Like ancient Egypt, what, 4,000, even more?
Yeah.
Thousands of years ago, they're watching the weather patterns. That was a whole fertile crescent area. That was grasslands, and that's where a lot of food came from. There, a lot of migratory animals went through. And they've been watching it. Clearly, since that time, that whole region has become desertified, right? That was before any industrialization.
Well, anybody who grew up near Disneyland remembers riding the circle train around Disneyland, goes through the Grand Canyon diorama. Prehistoric times, it's looking quite tropical. Present times, and by present I mean 1955,
right?
It's looking like the Grand Canyon that we know.
Right.
What sucks, though, is if climate change is inevitable and it's just the way things are and we have nothing to do with it, what sucks is it's never happened in a period that we could record, where tons of people would end up dying and stuff, and civilizations would be lost. It's kind of like, do you ever think, you'll have an earthquake, or they'll talk about the Midwest. The Midwest never has earthquakes. There was a 9.3 recorded earthquake in the Midwest 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But no one was there to go, oh, shoot,
that was the last
there goes
time.
my livestock. Yeah, but and we just assumed since, Mount Rainier hasn't erupted in however hundreds of years, it's not going to do it again.
Right. Well, but then we made that assumption about Mount St. Helens. And
we sure did, and it blew.
Yeah, I take the long view on all these things. I'm not going to take a position on global warming, so I want all the hotheads to freak out on it.
No pun intended.
Because I don't care, because we're beyond the point of inevitability. Even if we change our practices, it's going to be too little too late. So, there's 7 billion people.
But we feel so much better about ourselves.
I feel great about myself.
If I wasn't so old and stiff, I could pat myself on the back for no longer, for driving a hybrid car, which I don't do, by the way.
Wait, you dumped the hybrid?
No, I said if I drove a hybrid car, I could pat myself on the back for doing my bit to stop global warming, even though it's really doing nothing.
Yeah, well, it can't hurt. Hybrid car does something, but let's not forget that the elements that make up the batteries and all the heavy metals that are in those cars.
And the plant that makes the car.
Yeah, this stuff's recyclable.
Okay.
I think it's all good, moves in the right direction.
If I could just have one thing happen, I wouldn't be so bothered by it if I could just have a room air conditioner in my bedroom so I could sleep.
So why don't you get one of those little things?
Well, here's the thing.
Get one of those things.
Is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Right.
Is that the hierarchy? Yeah. Okay. I would love it to be 65 degrees in my bedroom all the time.
I understand.
And I could conceivably, you don't even need a window air conditioner anymore, right? You just buy a little box and you roll it in there, turn it on, close the door, close the window, 65 degrees.
Right.
But, you know what that would mean for me?
What?
Endless ridicule from Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
Maslow's, she already makes fun of me when I bring the fan up, which is like anytime it gets above 70, the fan's up there, it's blowing in my face, she's making fun of me.
Yeah, but how often is she actually in the house? She's making fun of you, but then she's like...
No, I mean every night when I go to bed.
I thought half the time she's in Switzerland.
She is in Switzerland right now.
So what do you care?
So you're saying I should, while she's gone, she should come back and find a dripping, expensive, loud air conditioner in the bedroom?
No, I'm saying you got to
and me peacefully sleeping.
You get the air conditioner, you put it there, and then when she comes back, you put a little
I wrap it in a Tiffany's box.
No, because then you're going to, when she opens that up, you're going to get your ass kicked.
I might actually get physically harmed in that case.
No, you put like a scarf over it, and you tell her, oh, I got a little side
piece of furniture.
Right, you put a vase with a flower on it. I'm telling you, put a vase with a flower on it, becomes a marital aid.
Ooh. Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because
I've sees that flower.
Woohoo! It's interesting because
it's so cool in here.
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about this, and it is like I always get mad. God, I wish she would just let me get an air. Well, of course she would let me get an air conditioner, but it is hierarchy of needs. My need to not get ridiculed constantly is greater than my need to be able to sleep at night. Plus, my need to not feel like a selfish jerk because I'm sleeping away in comfort while my poor child is suffocating in the room next door.
Yeah,
the unair-conditioned room next door.
To leave, right? So
no, I don't know. He's all right. I don't want him.
Back on the fence on this one.
You have a teenager. Oh, by the way, I heard the most wonderful things about your younger daughter the other day. We ran into a family that she babysits for.
Oh, really?
She was babysitting for him that night.
Was it
Belsky?
Teacher? Oh, yeah, they're nice people.
Oh, she is the nicest.
Yeah, she's got a good relationship with
So you got a little dream child there.
She's a good girl. She's turning into a teenager, though. I mean,
they can't help it. They're just so irrational. They just can't help it.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, she was always such a sweet one. I mean, the way this kid would greet you, literally, you'd walk in the room, she'd be like, oh, hi, Larry, I like your shoes. So let me tell you about what's going on with school today. Oh, I like your shirt. You know what I mean? she would hug her teachers when she left the class. She was just almost programmatically kind.
My poor child is just so stressed out right now about the AP test that he was a little bit of a pill with his mother in Switzerland.
Right. Prima took one the other day.
He bounced back. Yeah, they're not... Those AP tests, I don't even know if I think they're a good idea, frankly.
Yeah, so, you're talking to the wrong guy about this because what I've always told my children and what I believe is, I don't care what grade you get. Yeah. I don't care. You're not going to school so you can be graded by your teachers. You're going to learn. And if you get a D in mathematics and you got to take it again, I don't care if you have to take it twice to learn it. What I care is that you learn, and you must understand. And the goal of learning is you must understand how this world works so you can be effective living in it.
Well, you are correct. However, grades are the capital by which they trade in education. At this point, I totally get it. Sandra Bullock went to a college with no grades.
Yeah.
And I
And
saw.
now look at her; she's like running her freaking
I know,
company.
she
She's all over
crushes.
the world while you're debating a
Right.
air conditioner.
Well, I had really bad grades, but I've seen her.
How could you have bad? You've been like to grad school more times than
Yeah.
I've been. The supermarket.
Well, that was writing grad school. You just had to send in your sample. Oh well, the second one. Okay, and by the second
All right.
time,
Anyways, disclosure: Larry's being self-deprecating here.
But I did
Just
have
so you
really
know.
no. I did have really bad grades. I was the worst student until I got to grad
Really?
school. I was a horrible student. Once I got to grad school, like, oh, I'm gonna take this kind of
It's 'cause
seriously.
you're smart.
And then I realized I was
Yeah.
really good at grad school, but not what grad school was training me for.
Right. By the time you got up to
I was
school,
great at being in
you were already
school.
supposed to be in an
Oh god,
occupation.
I was so good at being in school at that
Yeah.
point. Anyways, here's an idea I have for this week.
Yeah.
Something a little different. I brought with me the latest issue of the Jewish Weekly magazine. The weekend here in San Francisco.
The J.
Called the J, the Jewish News Weekly. For a couple of reasons, I was walking over here thinking about it. First, I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll just go through the J and I'll just point at an article and we'll discuss whether or not that's good for the Jews. That's one way we could go. The other way I could go is discussing, as a faux journalist myself, who has actually interviewed for and been offered a job at the J way in the past, didn't take it.
Would having Larry Rosen on our editorial board
Would that have been good for the Jews? Probably
I don't
not.
know. Have you read his blog? He has some controversial
He's a
views.
little ambivalent.
Right.
He's a little ambivalent.
I think he went to Catholic school.
He
We
did,
might
and I
be aware
think
of
he
that.
might be the kind of person who would send his child to Catholic school as well.
And he's not a knee-jerk liberal. It's the fact that he's not a bleeding heart. He's just an ordinary liberal.
Well,
he would just be considered liberal in Texas, but not here in San Francisco. That's what bothers me.
My father used to say before we moved to California, when we lived in the Northeast, he was considered very conservative for there, and he said he was a member of the B'nai Birch Society.
B'nai Birch?
Yeah, no, B'nai Birch.
B'nai Birch.
But then we moved to
Okay,
Orange
not a
County, and
Jewish
he was considered liberal.
Right, yeah.
And now he's just all right. He is his own man, which you can be, except here. And another question to consider is this idea of a Jewish publication. And I thought about that because when I was deep into the Donald Sterling issue.
Yeah, it's hard to shake that one.
Boy, did you see what he did last week?
I've seen he's been digging his hole deeper
Oh my
by
God.
talking more and more.
By
He
saying-
insulted Magic Johnson.
Yeah, for being a role model. Yeah, he's
because he got AIDS. Magic should be ashamed of himself because he got AIDS.
Right, and thanks, Don, for including that you went to synagogue and prayed.
Right. Oh, he prayed for Magic?
At the synagogue, yeah. Thanks,
I went to
Don.
synagogue and prayed
I
that
went to
Magic
synagogue.
Johnson will get over his AIDS.
Yeah, so I could slag on him to Anderson Cooper.
I had a friend,
4
or a
years
friend
later.
of the family who got AIDS and died. She got AIDS from a blood transfusion.
Like Arthur Ashe.
It was a tremendous tragedy for
Yeah.
our entire family.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to get it.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure Magic,
No, I know. Yeah, Magic was pretty forthright about how he got it, as far as we
How'd
know.
he get it?
Unprotected sex.
Just run around?
Yeah, he had quite an appetite.
Really? Well,
He
he's
says.
not one of those 7-foot tall guys.
Right,
he
he wasn't fat then. Now he's hugely fat. But
Right, but he had $100 million.
it is kind of amazing, when I was thinking about that. I mean, he's been HIV positive for 23 years, and has never gotten AIDS.
Right. Well, he can afford all the
True, he can
all the
afford.
medications, and he's probably clean living, keeps himself healthy.
I don't know. He's pretty fat.
No, but I mean, look, I know people who've got AIDS or HIV. They're HIV positive, and they've lived a long time.
Yeah, I know.
First thing you gotta do is like quit shooting heroin. Quit shooting methamphetamine. Quit
That's usually a good
snorting cocaine.
idea.
Right? Quit drinking
regardless of
alcohol
where you're
by the
going.
buckets. Quit smoking cigarettes.
Right. Right. You got to be pretty healthy. Yeah, it's really changed. I know a bunch of guys who have lived with it forever too.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the day, I knew guys who would die in 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, when it first came out, there was no treatment. No one even knew where it came from.
Right. No one knew what it was. Anyways, to re-digress or undigress, this idea of a Jewish publication. And, Mom, I know you can't see this, but the publication itself is sitting between us.
Hold it up. There you go. You
Hold
see
it up
that?
to the microphone. Can you see that? When I was reading about Sterling, and when I Googled Donald Sterling Jewish, when it was just a suspicion that I had,
Right.
everything that came up was Jewish publications distancing themselves from. There's a ton of Jewish publications.
We want nothing to do with a good-for-nothing Donald Sterling. He's a shanda for the goyim.
Definitely, now that I know what that means. But as a faux journalist, I was wondering if it's even a good... Like, I could have written for this magazine, The J, and written about Jewish stuff. Or I could write about Jewish stuff for the general population.
But the general population doesn't care.
And what about what this presents to us? I remember talking... So you said this is a liberal publication, and it is, I think...
Well, it says here it's a Jewish publication. It doesn't say liberal.
But it's the Jewish News Weekly of Northern California.
So you think Northern California implies a certain liberal bent.
Jewish Northern California. Give me a percentage off the top of your head of the Jews you know, and you know a lot of Jews. You could write a song about it.
Yeah.
I
know a lot of Jews.
These are the Jews I know.
It's not a good
What
one.
percentage of them would you describe as liberal or progressive?
All of them.
Okay.
Well, honestly, you know, you got to exclude the Russians, and you got to exclude some of the old folks. But yeah, they're heavily overrepresented.
Right. In fact, this magazine, I've been told before by people that we know that it's too conservative.
You know, so just for the record, I've always considered myself to be a liberal. It's just, I'm not just one of these bleeding heart knee-jerk liberals that we find here.
Well, it's interesting. I've always thought of the politics in San Francisco as orthodoxy masquerading as progressivism.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
If you strip away the dogmatism and the forced conformity
right.
of the so-called progressives who are pushing their shopping carts around Whole Foods, you know, lamenting.
Right, yelling at their kids in French.
Right. You know, you're going to be late for capoeira. Anyway, you know, it's like, yeah, man, if you take that eccentric fringe element out of it,
yeah.
I think I could still qualify as a liberal.
Which is, yeah, I think you could too, because you are open to new things.
What's your question about the J? And I just have to say I'm impressed that you no longer even have the pretense of coming in here with an idea of what we're going to do.
I had tons
of
ideas.
Pull something out of your bag. You say, "Here's something. Let's look at this magazine.
Yeah,
it's got a J on it."
I'm slowly morphing into Gallagher. I'm going to start pulling out melons and sledgehammers eventually.
So what's your question?
Well, my question is twofold. Like I said, my overarching question is whether I get this every week, and I read it cover to cover every week, and I never finish in a better mood than I started. I'm always mad when I'm done reading this magazine. Yeah. Newspaper, whatever you call it. It's made out of newsprint, but it's shaped like a magazine.
Have you considered like
a
the Catholic Worker or one of these?
I bet that would probably make me mad too. I don't even know if any religious publication or culturally narrow publication is good for that culture.
Well, this isn't religious, right?
It's not religious. It's always, yeah, I mean, it's good. DIY B'nai Mitzvah, which I know a lot of people who did that, right?
Right.
I mean, no temple,
That's
right?
Do-it-yourself
right.
bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. Yeah, we know a couple who did.
Yeah, we know tons.
There've been some nice parties, too.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know if this is a good thing. And for me as a Jew, as this kind of Jew, as this sort of ambivalent Jew, still learning, always learning, and maybe with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
I haven't noticed that.
This thing never puts me in a better mood. It always makes me mad. Because there's always news in here about us being attacked. About how come people... Yeah, I could turn...
Ignorance is bliss.
Let me turn to any page here.
And if you want to be in a good mood, don't read the news at all. I hate to tell you. You never read the news.
Or...
Like,
yeah,
nice
okay,
guy
here's...
does something wonderful for, you know, sad kids. Saves a puppy.
Or there's just stuff in here that I think is just kind of dumb. I hate to say.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, this is a pop magazine. It's not really...
Yeah.
News. Any news in here is either going to be local
J
from
Street
from a wire service, right? Any real news? It's not. From
well,
J
I don't know.
It's wire service.
Let's see. Iran bans text apps citing Zionist owner Zuckerberg. In poll, half of Israelis say world is against us. Kerry is way off base. Abbas should not be lauded.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
I know. But you know, that's almost as bad for me that I can read that and go, yeah, and just get all fired up.
So, are you saying is
I'm not sure if this is so
the
good.
Jewish weekly good for the Jews? The question is your,
good for
is
me.
Your partisanship, you know, the sort of the partisan ire, your rancor, you know, is that good for the Jews?
I don't know. Yeah, you know, that might be a good question. Is the idea of when you're you know, let's just break it. Let's get down to brass tacks. If you're a pro-Israel Jew,
which I am,
right? Oh, here's something about Donald Sterling. Sterling's Dollars posts ethical dilemmas for Jewish charities.
Money's green, baby. So,
I think we sort of discussed that, didn't we?
yeah.
Don Sterling.
Yeah, Don, he's probably a huge philanthropist. You know, now
Oh, I'm sure he is. He has. Even Bill Gates is a huge philanthropist, and he's like on the spectrum. Oh, the thing that I hate the most here actually isn't in here. The Jewish jokes that are so horrible.
They don't have Jewish jokes?
They always have Jewish jokes, but they're terrible.
Well, they're like straight out of the Henny Youngman joke book, right?
Oh, worse. Anyways, if you're a pro-Israel Jew,
Which I am.
and you live here,
Which I do.
it's not a stretch to feel under fire.
Oh, yeah, this is ground central
Yeah.
for the...
I'll tell you what, after 9/11,
Yeah.
it was the worst. A little bit after the shock of 9/11,
yeah.
hang on, hear me out. After the shock of 9/11 faded a bit, and people got back to the, hey, you're being Islamophobic thing, that's when I felt under siege. Although, let's be honest here, that also corresponds with when my child started a Jewish school and I ramped up my Jewish identity.
Okay, so we'll take your personal experience out of it and we'll just look at it in the abstract. September 11th occurred. Terrorists who were mostly from Egypt and Saudi Arabia, America's two closest allies in the Muslim world,
Yeah.
were the ones who hijacked airplanes and launched a simultaneous attack on America's commercial center, the Twin Towers, America's military nerve center, the Pentagon. Just so happened that the passengers on that airplane intervened
Right.
and saved the plane from hitting the Pentagon and destroying it all. Or no,
No,
that
that
would
was
hit
the White
Pentagon.
House. It was
Then
supposed
the
to
White
hit
House
the
was
symbol
for
of
political.
America.
No, forget the symbol. That's where
Yeah.
the presidents in his cabinet are doing their work.
Right.
So they launched a coordinated attack on the financial, military, and political leaders of the country. Okay.
Yeah,
Could have
yeah.
been a devastating blow. Who knows what would have followed had they been successful? You don't know. We don't really know if it's part of a larger plot. All we know is these guys from
God, do you
countries that
remember
are
how-
allied with us.
It was just crazy.
And then what happened immediately after that happened?
What?
Immediately after, the propagandists took to the internet, the airwaves, and their yellow journalism, and they started saying, the Mossad coordinated these attacks.
Oh, right.
The Mossad
Did you-
texted all the Jews.
Did
at the
you
World
notice
Trade
there were no
Centers.
Jews in the World Trade
No,
Center?
no Jews in the World Trade Center. They all evacuated because they got an advance phone
God,
call.
we're smart.
That was Israeli drones that were used.
Right.
Actually, the World Trade Center was detonated by bombs.
But I'll tell you
the
what.
airplane didn't even hit it.
Those stories did not only come from crackpots, they came from progressives
Progressives are crackpots.
in San Francisco.
The ones we're talking about are crackpots.
Yeah.
These extreme. I'm not talking about your.
Truthers.
Is that what you call them? Truthers?
That's what they're called. Truthers, yeah.
I
Are
thought
they
the
called truthers?
Truthers were the ones who thought Obama was.
No, those are birthers.
Oh, birther! Oh my God, thank you. Yeah, it's so good to have a man of letters, here.
Yeah, and
to
that
keep
letter
it
is
straight.
Q.
So wait, you're saying September? You don't remember what you're saying?
I
You're
know, I was
September
saying
11th. and
being
then-
under siege, feeling under siege.
I'm saying right after September 11th. Okay, yeah, this whole disinformation campaign, and what you said is, that was by these extreme left crackpots. I'm saying, but not only that. If you were to go on,
I guess
the
my
Al
point is it
Jazeera
wasn't
website-
extreme left crackpots. Always.
Well, this way of thinking has permeated the mainstream.
That's what I'm saying. It's not extreme anymore. And Al Jazeera, in my world of faux journalism, is generally understood to be this wonderful voice of truth.
Oh, hogwash, man. Al Jazeera, on their webpage, on the front page, on their homepage, they would have like the news of the day, editorials, and they have a column labeled conspiracy theories.
Nice.
And it was all
Hey,
the reporting on what's
I like a
going
good
on.
conspiracy theory as much as anybody.
I don't like them at all.
Really? Not even JFK?
No, that's,
Yeah, I like that one. Did you hear the latest one that is totally plausible?
Let me hear it.
One of the Secret Service guys, after the first shot, was a rookie,
Uh-huh.
jumped out of the car, his gun went off by accident, that was the magic bullet.
Wouldn't they have tested the weapons of all the people on security detail afterwards?
I haven't the slightest idea.
I mean, if there's a police shooting, the first thing they do is
Right.
collect all the officers'
I haven't the
weapons and all the spent
slightest
cartridges.
idea at all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what?
I know
must
Woody
say-
Harrelson's dad was there.
Really?
Yep, convicted
Maybe he
murderer
did.
Charles Harrison.
Really?
Yep,
God.
true story. He's a hitman for the mob.
Right. So Woody Harrelson's dad's convicted murderer. Woody just an actor. He doesn't have anything to boast of.
He's a likable actor, though.
He's a likable actor, but he's also, kind of a wacko and a pothead.
He's a little bit.
There's anything wrong with that, I appreciate that.
He wears clothing you could smoke.
He wears hemp clothes. But what I don't understand is why would anyone on the internet read Woody Harrelson's political views and think, yeah, man, Woody makes sense, and I'm going to go with Woody. What does he have that gives him any sort of credibility as a public personality to spread his views and get followers? It's like,
I think sometimes people don't follow their inner compass. They do things for us to react to. And I think following Woody Harrelson as some sort of voice of anything other than thank you for being bald and having chicks still dig you,
that's enough.
Is just kind of a middle finger to people who say Woody Allen's a crackpot. Oh, no, he's not. You should read his stuff. You're totally closed-minded.
Well, the reason I'm bringing up this point is to tie it back to your whole September 11th journalism
Sure.
thing, okay, and the fact that non-crackpots, but just genuine liberals, real honest-to-goodness people who participate in the democratic process and believe things, these people are suffering from a lack of reliable, authoritative information. It's not that it doesn't exist; it's that they don't know how to go out and reference it.
How do you sift through it?
Right there, because everyone's
especially
used to
now
going
there's
to the
so
internet.
much information.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
but I don't
the
know.
problem.
I mean, but they've always. I mean, there's always been a slant to journalism, one way or the other. It's nearly impossible to just report it.
There's always been a slant.
And you know what's hilarious? I worked for the newspaper in San Francisco that was considered a conservative rag. And I remember, do you remember in, what election was that where McCain ran? 2008? 2000, whatever.
2008 was
McCain against
versus
Obama. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that it?
So the newspaper I worked for endorsed McCain.
Uh-huh.
And of course they're not allowed to do that.
What?
Because you just can't have that opinion here.
Oh yeah, but
so the people
technically they can.
But if you were in that newsroom when that happened, the outrage and the anger just made me crack up. The people would ever think that the newspaper I worked for was somehow populated by people slanted to the right.
Right.
Trying to get some sort of right agenda across.
Yeah, you want to believe
there are no journalists
that
like
there was
that.
a Democratic poll within the company and the newspaper backed the president.
Right.
Because the people
No.
working there.
It was because the publisher was a Christian guy.
Well, this is the truth. This has
or maybe
always
just
been
wanted to
with
sell
journalism.
newspapers.
Okay, as long as there's been newspapers have been published by political parties, labor unions. When industrialists got big and they had enough money, they started to publish their own newspapers. It became a business. But my point is that the news has always been a tool to sway public opinion.
Sure.
Back in the days, the American revolutionaries used to print up pamphlets.
Right.
Ben Franklin printed them. Guys like Thomas Paine.
Well, didn't Hearst start the Spanish? What war was it he started?
He started a war?
Yeah. When they blew up the Maine in Havana. God, I wish I knew this.
Oh, okay.
If my child taking the AP history test right now could probably tell us which war that was.
I don't know the
You're not a history guy, are you?
I know some history, but I don't
a little bit history.
That much history. I know a little bit of history.
Yeah.
No. Anyway,
Anyways.
the point is, okay, there's 2 points here. One is that the journalism, if you expect it to be free, independent, fair-minded, it's not a scientific journal, okay? News is not, they're not scientifically bringing you information. It's slanted. Everyone expects that, and you knew growing up, if you wanted to read something slanted towards the workers, you could read socialist paper.
Right.
If you wanted to read something conservative, you could read.
Well, then how come
Republican?
Let me
paper,
ask you this
whatever.
then: if that's been going on since time immemorial, has it also been going on that whatever newspaper you read, you are convinced that's the one that's not slanted? It's the other one that's slanted.
Right. I mean, people who are watching Fox News are convinced they're right. And
right.
else is crazy.
And people watching MSNBC are convinced of the exact same thing.
That's right. And as Frank Zappa said, in my experience, you cannot change a person's mind.
Oh, I totally agree.
Right? So that's
Could you imagine how much less noise there would be where we live if people took that seriously?
Yeah.
Although they all think the same thing.
We'd still have a show.
We'd still have a show.
We got something to say.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm saying that dynamic exists, always has existed, but there's something new. The internet and desktop publishing and all these other channels that are emerging very quickly allow people to go to take their message directly to listeners without having
Right.
to go through
Sure.
the whole
Like-
financial restrictions of
Look
setting
at
up.
us. We get
Look
to
at us.
present our unfiltered opinions to my mom
That's right.
and Kimmel.
And you know, if your mom and Kimmel
Have friends that, hey, listen to my son.
and if they go out and they start demonstrating rioting because they listen to us with the same
Right.
amount of trust that some people put into, you know,
Al
what was
Jazeera.
that- Yeah, what was that guy the conservative guy everyone hates?
Which one?
Rush Limbaugh.
Oh.
You know, if like they're saying, well, they're
Okay.
Rush Limbaugh.
Now that's an interesting example to me because from where I sit, he is a clown, right?
Well,
He's like, hey, look at me, everyone. I'm going to say incendiary thing. He's a complete clown.
you're like Howard Stern to me. There's two types
You
of
should
people.
know better.
There's two types of people. There's one type of person that will find like-minded people and then associate with them and